In today's video, we're going to be diving into how ground reaction forces work in the golf swing. To be specific, we're going to be looking at in detail Isaac's third law of motion, which states for every force acting on a stationary object, there is always an equal and opposite force acting upon it. Now, what does this mean and how can we utilize this to our advantage in our golf swing? If you'd like to learn more, I'd recommend watching till the very end of the video. For those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Harry, PGA professional, transforming golfers worldwide. Drop a comment down below of a tips or drills topic you'd like me to cover next, and be sure to hit the subscribe button if you enjoy watching this one and take these tips and drills on board in your own game. So let's start off with an example of how Isaac's third law of motion works. So for every force acting on a stationary object, there is always an equal and opposite force acting upon it. So with the stationary object being the ground, what happens if we were now just to do a squat jump? What happens if we were to try and jump as high as we possibly could? First off, we would press and squat into the ground to then push back upwards to jump as high as we possibly can. Using this force applied into the ground to create that pressure, we're going to get that equal and opposite force taking place. Have you ever noticed that to jump higher, you always press down even more? You always go quicker, apply more pressure into the ground to jump higher. That's the key to this move. But how can we bring this into the golf swing? We're going to be talking about that in detail later on, but I need to show you some of the tendencies that I've noticed golfers do that stop them from getting this ground reaction force, utilizing this to their advantage in their golf swing. Now, what we tend to notice a lot of golfers do is firing their hips too early to start that downswing. Just taking the club now, this can cause the upper body, depending on how flexible you are, the upper body to follow the lower body, firing the hips, and for the club to come over the top. Cause you to get too steep onto the golf ball, hitting those fat and thin golf shots, and also those slices and possibly low pulls, especially when we have poor disassociation. And this is where we are unable to separate this lower body of ours to the upper body. So if we were to do the disassociation test now, placing the club across your shoulders and just trying to twist your hips either side like so, if you find it very, very difficult to do this action here, and you find that your shoulders to begin to follow your hips either side, this is a great indication that you have low mobility and flexibility levels. Therefore, firing those hips in the downswing, it's going to be difficult to get that consistency because the shoulders are going to follow, and that causes that club to go on the outside, those outcomes that I mentioned earlier. But if you're someone who finds this movement easy to implement, you are going to be able to fire the hips. But I can guarantee 9 out of 10 of you watching this video will struggle to do that action there. So how can we utilize those ground reaction forces, but also start this golf club on the right plane? As opposed to getting too far out, how can we shallow this club down like the pros do every single time without fail? Well, using the example that I gave you before, doing that squat jump, well, we're going to be applying a squat into the downswing. So rather than turning up to the very top of your swing and trying to fire this hip to start that downswing, we're going to be doing the opposite. We're going to rotate up to the top of our swing like normal, then we're going to squat into the ground. Now what we're doing here is we're transferring our weight, the majority of our weight of course, into this trail foot here. So we're pressing into that trail foot by transferring the weight as we rotate into the top of the swing, back facing towards the target. Now to add even more pressure, like we want to, utilizing those ground reaction forces, we're going to press into the ground even more. So it's going to really feel like when you're doing this that you're adding a lot more pressure into your trail side. We're not leaning into this foot as we press into the ground to try and add that pressure. We're just turning and squatting straight down. And just doing this, you'll be able to feel more pressure into both feet, but especially this trail side. Now, why should we feel it in the trail side? We want to be transferring this weight, of course, onto the lead side on the way through in that downswing follow-through stage, like we're all taught to. However, going back to that saying of Isaac's third law of motion, for every force acting on a stationary object, there is always an equal and opposite force. If we were to really try and transfer the weight first to begin that downswing, the force is being applied into the ground in this direction here, where my club shaft is pointing, yeah? So what we're going to do is we're going to then push off the ground and away from the golf ball. So we're going to try and really get, and this is why a lot of you really struggle to transfer the weight, because you're trying to transfer your weight this way, firing those hips, pressing into the ground, and then when you push upwards, you're going to be pushing away from the golf ball, behind the golf ball, back onto the trail side, getting that reverse centre of pressure as we make our way backwards like so. Reverse centre of pressure is basically transferring the weight onto the lead side and then pushing back up onto the trail side as we make our way to the golf ball. So instead, to really get that weight and pressure really transferred onto the lead side in the downswing, it's really important that as we get to the top, we apply the pressure the opposite direction. So if we can get this force acting on the stationary object being the ground by pressing directly into the ground, adding more pressure on this trail foot, there's only one way we can swing through, and that is pushing up and off from this trail side to then allow us to transfer the weight onto the lead side. If we're pushing away from this side, we're always going to move forward, therefore transferring the weight naturally, as opposed to trying this way and pushing behind the golf ball. So the 3 stages, rotating up to the very top of the swing, rather than trying to press and transfer the weight, get that hip moving towards the target and pushing the club outwards, we're going to delay this move by pressing into the ground first. And I'm holding this position here with the club, and that's allowing me to set this club now on a much shallower angle. And then from here, we're going to push up from this trail side of the body and rotate this left hip away from the golf ball. And the rotation of the left hip going away from the golf ball should happen naturally. That's just another feel for you, just to help you if you're struggling to really turn through the shot when trying this. It shouldn't be difficult for you to do, because once you apply the force here, the force is going to push you ahead and towards the target anyway. Another bonus tip I like to feel as I'm pushing back upwards from the ground this way, just like that squat move and squat jump pushing back upwards, is just feeling like my belly and chest are facing towards the target as I make my way through to finish. So I've got 211 yards. I'm going to bring this move into my own swing here now, nice and smooth, just to see how far I can hit the golf ball. Not really putting much effort in whatsoever. I'm just swinging up to the top, pressing down a touch and swinging through. And let's just see how far this one goes. 5 iron in the hands, 211 yards. Let's see. Now that was a poor strike, very poor strike, hence why it's just landed at the front of the green, but rolled to the middle. Now what I didn't do then was squat enough. What I'm very good at doing, and this is my tendency, is I'm very good at pushing back upwards, quick enough to make contact with the golf ball. A lot of us will do the opposite. A lot of us will make our way up to the top of the swing and squat down, but struggle to push back up, struggle to do this squatting motion because it's tricky to trust, simply because we're dipping in height. It's going to feel like to you when you're making those practice swings that you're dipping this much in height, a good 5 inches. But when you try this with the golf ball, you're only going to dip that much. When you give it a try, film it on camera and you will see exactly what I mean by this. So I'm going to here just do another one, but I'm actually going to take my 6 iron instead. I'm going to take 6 iron as opposed to 5 iron, just because I'm going to press into the ground more, just to see if I can improve that strike, but also pressing into the ground more is going to create even more of a force reacting back up from the ground. So 6 iron in my hand now. Let's see if I can get a better strike, better outcome by squatting into the ground even more so to begin that downswing. Again, I could have squatted even more then, but the speed applied was a lot more, and that pretty much went the same distance, if not slightly further. But what happens if I was to take a 7 iron now and really exaggerate this squat move and then push back upwards? I just need to trust the fact that if I can push back upwards quicker, I'm going to get the great outcome that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go 7 iron now, give this a try with the 7 iron, just to see if if I can get it that same distance or even further like so. I almost forgot, GX Golf provide high quality golf clubs for a fraction of the price in comparison to the rest of the market. I've been using these golf clubs now for the last couple of months, really impressed with them. I'm going to be using these definitely for the rest of the season ahead, and using my discount code Harry10 you can get yourself 10% off your entire order. Link will be in the description below. And for those of you when you're practicing this, I'd highly recommend starting off with 150. If you'd usually hit a 6-iron to 150 or a 7-iron to 150, start off with that, see if you can get it past the pin, then go down a club to your 8 or 7-iron, and then down again. See if you can really exaggerate this squat move to take place in your game. So 7-iron, let's see if this one can go the same distance. Now that one was a much better strike. So it wouldn't surprise me if that one went further. Yeah, it has gone a touch further than the last two. I also have the tendency of getting to the very top of my backswing, and then I bring my arms closer to me. I bring my hands closer to my upper body, which causes flexion in this lead arm. So when I get this flexion in the lead arm, I'm reducing the width of arc as I make my way to hit the golf ball. So if I'm pushing back upwards, and I'm doing this motion here where I'm flexing my arms even more so, especially my lead arm, I'm going to start thinning the golf ball like I did on those first two shots. So what I'm going to advise you to do is allow the arms to be thrown towards the ball, okay? So you can see there, if I was just to swing up to the top, press down first, and then push back up, as I'm pushing back up, I'm going to really feel like I'm extending my arms to the ground and through to finish there. I'm just holding this position here just to really exaggerate the feeling there. And what this allows me to do is actually get those arms and body working in opposite directions, just like the reaction forces. The great example here is if we were to throw this golf ball at this net as far as we possibly could, the upper body, the body would move in an opposite direction to where the arm and ball goes. The body would rotate and turn towards the wall this way, face the wall that way, as the ball goes towards the net and the arm goes towards the net. It's the same action in the golf swing. So have a couple of throws just moving and trying to get this ball going as far as you possibly can, and you will feel this motion happening where the body and the arm moves in opposite directions. So we are throwing the club down to the ball. So I'm going to throw the club down to the ball using my 7-iron again. Great bonus tip that I'd highly recommend doing that when you're making your practice swings, doing this motion. So then apply this into your golf swing. 7-iron, let's see if I can get it past the pin. Now that was a really good strike. Lost a little bit of balance on there just because I exaggerated that squat motion. Oh, very similar distance to the one previously, but again, excellent strike there. So the keys to take away from this video are getting up to the top, squatting down into the ground, pushing back up, and throwing the arms to the ball to ensure of that center strike. So for those of you who've come this far, I'd highly recommend hitting the subscribe button as there's content coming to you every Tuesday and Friday, 6 p.m. GMT. And why not check out any of these two videos over here for more content like this. And stay tuned because I'm going to be revealing my very first course coming out to you to help you further improve your game very soon. It's all to do with the downswing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.